Hi, Sloan. How are you?
Hi, Cassie. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time to talk with us about STEAM education. And so we're really excited to have you here today to talk with us about your experiences because you've had quite varied experiences in both being a STEAM teacher and now a district administrator. So I'd love for you to just begin by kind of giving a bit of your background into STEAM education and briefly your experiences with that.
Sure, definitely. So I started out teaching second and third grade at a non-STEAM school. I briefly was an instructional coach, Title I facilitator, and then worked in the math curriculum field at the district office. And then I had the opportunity, our district was forming a brand new STEAM school, and I was really interested in it. So I decided to go back into the classroom to teach first grade in that STEAM setting. So I was at Philip Simmons for 2 years as a first grade teacher. And then I had the opportunity to join the instructional technology team at the district level. So now in my current role, our district has about 47 schools. There are 7 of us. So I am the support for 6 of the schools. And of those, 3 of them are STEAM schools.
Great. And so you've had both the experience of being at one school that was transforming into a STEAM school and then also supporting many schools. How do you see STEAM education changing classrooms and schools?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The vibes in general in a STEAM school just have a couple of unique qualities, and one of them is really a sense of purpose in the students, where even in looking at what's on display in the hallway, instead of seeing 25 identical George Washington construction papers with writing, you might see completely unique products that are created by students that are about specific topics that are current and that are really based on something that matters to students and matters locally. So you might see posters, you might see infographics, you might see a QR code to a video that the student created. So a couple of things that are really making a difference is that unique student voice and the choice and how they demonstrate their learning, but also in what they're choosing to display and what they're choosing to highlight as being important. And often it's that uniqueness, and a lot of times too, even though there's a bunch of different products on display or students are presenting these products, there's also a lot more collaboration, where before you would see 26 of something identical, you might see 12 or 8 of many different types of products that teams worked on to display their learning or reflect on a certain phase of the process of learning.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the things that spend a lot of time talking and thinking about, and sort of as like a litmus test for is this STEAM, is that at the end, if the products all look the same by the students, it probably wasn't a STEAM unit. So that's sort of one indicator that we work with teachers on. So that's great that you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could briefly, and you kind of touched on this with student voice and choice, but briefly describe what's your philosophy of STEAM education?
Mm-hmm. So my philosophy is really, it always ties back to that problem in that scenario. So in everything that is happening with STEAM education, really using that transdisciplinary approach and that problem solving strategy to teach whatever the content is, but through a way that's meaningful for students, where students have the ability to ask questions and think deeply and help generate some of the solutions. It's really just different than a traditional style of education in a traditional classroom, where it's really teacher focused on these are the objectives, here's what you're going to do them. It's really like, here's the problem, what might be some ways that we can learn about this problem? Okay, now that we've learned about it, what might be something that we can do to make a difference in this problem? So a lot more open and student centered and flexible.
That's great. And when you were a first grade teacher, what did you notice about in STEAM education, how that impacted students?
Yeah. So one of the big things that I felt how the STEAM education impacted students was that students became a lot more I guess it would be kind of like the John Spencer, the shift from compliance to being empowered. My students really didn't have to listen, didn't expect me to tell them what to do, how to do it, that type of thing. They really started seeking out problems on their own in any subject, in any content area, and kind of coming up with solutions after they're kind of going through that whole design thinking process in their head when they ran into anything. Um, One of the other major shifts I noticed was really behavior, because when students were super engaged and they were learning about a topic that meant something to them, and a topic not just to get a certain grade on a test, but they were learning information that they were then going to share with the world. So they felt really like this was important. What we're doing matters, and they're seeing things happen as a result of their work. So there was really no time for students to get in trouble or to be off task. There just wasn't any of that, because they were so focused on this work that they put all their creative energy into what they were doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, and for you as a teacher, how did you feel like it changed your teaching?
Oh my goodness, it totally it 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 woke me up, really. It made me think it is not about me. It is not about what I want. It is truly about these students and helping them to think about school and think about life in a different way, and kind of helping them to really identify these problems that are happening around them globally and pay attention to what they're doing, and think about the impact that humans have on everything else. It really got me excited to come to work every day, and it got me just excited to think about teaching in a different way, whether it be robotics challenges or novel engineering. It wasn't always about, the big giant unit, but some of these STEAM instructional approaches really made everyday kind of humdrum lessons like 2D shapes, a lot more exciting when I was able to pull in a robotics challenge with it. And I saw that excitement in my students, and then it kind of fueled my flame to think about ways that it really transformed my teaching to not be, all right, everybody, today we're going to learn about a triangle. Here's a triangle, and really shift it to more student centered instruction and let it start with them. And they were doing more of the work, honestly, than me. It was, yeah, it was very invigorating.
That's often what we hear for teachers, even after the first time they do a STEAM unit. They may not feel 100% comfortable with it,
Mhm.
because it is a shift from maybe them directing sort of the day-to-day lessons
Mhm.
to the students, but because the students are enjoying it so much that they're willing to try it again, right? They're willing
Oh yeah,
to see if there's other ways that they can improve. So that's
absolutely.
wonderful.
For sure.
And now, as your role in supporting teachers, what do you see as some of the challenges?
hmm That's a good question. So when I'm in the two newest schools that I have this is the first year that they've been a STEAM school. One of the things that I'm noticing is the teachers are afraid of failure. They're they are afraid that the products that kids make might not turn out the way that they would do them, and they might consider that as a failure. And so just letting them know that it's okay to kind of open it up and give students permission to then that they don't know how to do, because sometimes teachers will say to me, but I don't even know how to make a video. How can I expect that to be one of the choices for my students? So they're kind of afraid of letting go of some of that control and letting students figure stuff out on their own and go through that whole fail forward mentality, where they try it, they make it better the next time they do it, and then it can become a tool in their toolbox of ways to demonstrate learning in the future. Another big one is especially because the schools that I work with are elementary schools. And one of the challenges is helping them to see that things don't have to necessarily be cute or seasonal or be Pinterestable, helping them to really value the authenticity that comes with these STEAM projects, and helping them value the individual student, or the student teams, what their vision is for their learning and for their demonstrating their learning and making it public. So that's been a
Yeah, that's
challenge.
great.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what about the successes in supporting teachers? What do you hear your teachers say?
So, some of the biggest successes really come in having conversations with teachers who have been a little more timid to embracing kind of the student choice aspect, or the varied products, for the final projects and making their learning public. And once the actual first STEAM unit ends and the teacher has all of the products in front of them, whether they be digital or physical or whatever products they choose, helping looking at those products with the teachers and kind of seeing them go through this aha moment of, okay, each one looks very different. There might be a few that are a little similar, but they're not identical. And helping them, just when they see the value in that process, when they think, wow, how much work has gone in to the creation of these. The students have planned them, they've drafted them, they've edited them, they've now published them, and they just see how the impact can just grow and grow, especially when looking at things that are published digitally and how the global audience really, the number of people who are actually going to see the product between, okay, I'm going to write a paper about what I learned about air pollution, and a student generated video to give tips on ways to save energy at home that they actually publish to YouTube and then can be shared, through the school webpage or whatever. Just seeing how impactful that learning can be, even though all the products are so very different.
That's great. Um, and one of the concerns for STEAM is often technology integration.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, in your school district, there has been a big push for technology integration. But there's often schools that don't have those same affordances. So what kind of advice would you give to a school who's interested in STEAM education, but there's no way they're going to be able to do one-to-one laptops or devices,
Mm-hmm.
and so they may have to think about some of the low-tech options. So what advice would you give to them about doing STEAM in a different way?
Yeah, so in that situation, I know they don't maybe not want to hear about things like donors choose, but there really are resources out there that are available to help schools. And there's companies in most places that are willing to partner with schools. And you really don't have to be one to one, because so much is collaborative, that even if there's just a couple of devices per group of students, then they would be able to kind of use them. And some of the unplugged coding options can be done completely without technology. And even things like Ozobots are relatively cheap. They're $50 for a robot, and you don't have to have any type of device to control it. So if they're just wanting to kind of think of a few ways, I would try unplugged coding, maybe put in a donors choose request for a couple of Ozobots. And even one of the things that my class did do, because we didn't have a lot of Apple products in our classroom, and a lot of the cool video creation tools are based on Apple. Well, our district does have a bring your own device policy, and it's shocking how many students have access to either an old phone that has access to the App Store through Wi-Fi, or parents would let some students bring a Kindle, so they were able to use their own devices to create some of their products. And that got them even more excited about it too, because it was their device and just made it a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, then there's a lot of resources for how to, build a BYOD, a bring your own device, project into.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And then just lastly, like also, thinking about technology, but often, parents can be concerned about technology and how much technology our students have access to. And so, how do you help ease some of those concerns with parents? And particularly, I know you all have a focus on technology production versus consumption.
Yes.
So I'm just curious about how you kind of help parents rethink what some types of tech integration looks like in schools.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. That's something that we do struggle with. And that's exactly what we do, is we talk about what the kids are doing with the technology, because there is a time for students to consume information. So I don't think many parents would disagree with the fact that research is valuable, so talking about the amount of time that students are consuming watching videos about the topic or Googling it or using our state, for example, has kid-friendly research available through Discus. So it's things like Culturegrams or Encyclopedia Britannica. So when I'm working with my schools, we kind of look at it like that. Like, what are they consuming? Are they consuming information to gain information? But then on the other hand, what are they gonna do with that information? And if technology is being used for a lot of gaining information or consuming information for that particular topic, just thinking about balancing it. So building in pieces where there are times for students to kind of draft out on paper, or thinking about maybe then the following day the students would then be creating their products so that they're not just sitting in front of a device for 8 hours, because I don't think that that's really happening anywhere, but helping parents see that it's a nice balance of consuming to get information, but the majority and the emphasis of the tech integration piece be placed on, well, what are they doing? And another thing that we do too is we really like to try to actually publish student examples to our school's social media pages and even our district. We have our Innovation Squad page where we try to take snippets of ways that students are effectively using technology to create information and to make their learning public. And we post it so that parents can see from even other schools, oh, this is how second graders are using Chatterpix to show their learning about whatever. So the parents aren't thinking, oh, my kid's just sitting in front of a screen doing 35 minutes of some math program or something. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good idea to share those examples so that parents can really have a real clear understanding of what their students are doing with technology, which I think is really important. Yeah,
definitely.
Well, thank you, Sloan, for your time today. This was really helpful for us to think about STEAM education and in particularly technology integration.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.